day of competition was the 500 freestyle. This was not an event that I did, so I sat on the side of the pool and watched as Lia Thomas won, beating out Olympians, beating out American record holders, the most impressive female swimmers this country has ever seen by body lengths. This one swimmer beat every other swimmer in the country by seconds. So that next day of competition was the 200 freestyle, which wasn't the event that Thomas and I raced in, and ultimately resulted in a tie. We went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. And so upon tying, we go behind the awards podium where the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, you guys tied, but we have one trophy. So this trophy goes to Lia." And when I questioned him, I said, why? Why are you adamant on giving this trophy to Thomas? He says, well, Thomas has to have the trophy for photo purposes. You can pose with this one, but you'll have to give it back. You go home empty-handed. Lia takes the trophy home. And that is when my eyes were, I knew the unfair competition was wrong, and I knew the locker room being forced to change in front of someone who was fully intact with an exposing male genitalia. I knew that was wrong. But when this NCAA official reduced everything that I had worked my entire life for, every girl at that meet had worked their entire life for, down to a photo op for a male, that's when I knew I had had enough and I was done waiting for someone else to speak out on behalf of female athletes. It really hit me that if we as female athletes weren't willing to stick up for ourselves, how could we expect someone else to stick up for us?
What's up, everybody? Wired here. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. And today we once again have to talk about this trans debate in sports that is going on across the country. Many people are starting to speak out about it, or at least a lot more than a year ago. And you just heard right there from Miss Riley Gaines, who was, I would say definitely wrongfully denied a trophy for something, as she said in her own words, she worked her entire life for, from somebody who just walked into the sport a couple months ago, or I guess changed divisions or leagues or whatever it's called, and snatched the trophy from her, even if they got the same exact time. Of course, I'm talking about Lia Thomas, who was born a biological man, and in their last year of swimming at, I think, Penn State, decided to jump over to the women's league and pretty much dominated the competition. Now, before I get into the article, I do want to preface this for the YouTube overlords and say I am not being transphobic. I am pretty much just opening this up to discussion, so please don't ban me. But I think this is a discussion worth having, and we just saw this a little bit in politics. They just voted to keep this stuff out of schools, or at least in high school levels. I think, I don't know if it happened at the college level, but that they want people to stay in separate leagues. So I think it's totally fair. But we're gonna hear a little bit about Lia Thomas and her take on this, because, obviously now that Lia Thomas is pretty much done with swimming, I guess she is going to go the Riley Gaines route and become an activist. So, yeah, let's hear about that real quick.
They're like, oh, we respect Lia as a woman, as a trans woman, whatever. We respect her identity. We just don't think it's fair. You can't really have that sort of half support where you're like, oh, I respect her as a woman here, but not here. They're using the guise of feminism to sort of push transphobic beliefs. And I think a lot of people in that camp sort of carry an implicit bias against trans people, but don't want to, I guess, fully manifest or speak that out. And so they try to just play it off as this sort of half support.
They think about how twisted feminism, quote unquote, feminism has become. Their arguments, in order to exclude anybody in the trans category, you have to reduce women to reproductive capacity, which is, in my opinion, extremely anti-feminist. I don't want to put those women down either, and I know you don't want to either, because I see pain. I see pain, and the pain is coming from somewhere. It's not you, though. It's the patriarchy. And how can we get people to see that?
Yeah, so pretty fascinating stuff right there. We have two biological men sitting around pretty much explaining to feminists how feminists should feel about women's issues. And, denying that there is a biological advantage for somebody who begins to transition. I don't know how old Lia Thomas was when they began to transition, probably, 21, 22. They were in their last year of college. So, but apparently if you just start taking female hormones, estrogen or whatever they take, I'm not exactly sure, estrogen, I imagine, there's no, then it's equalized. It doesn't matter. Puberty doesn't matter. That's an irrelevant concept. and they got to explain to women how women should feel in women's spaces, which is, just fascinating stuff. Really, really fascinating. I honestly don't know how they can make these claims, and I am, again, going to repeat this, not trying to be transphobic. I make the argument, I think everyone should have safe spaces. I don't understand why they don't just have separate leagues for trans people. And I did a video a while ago on Bethany Hamilton. She came out in the surf league. Very good swimmer, has overcome great adversity in her own life, very talented. And she got slammed for the same thing, and Riley Gaines, she was just pretty much held hostage a couple weeks ago on a college campus for speaking out against this same issue. Just trying to protect women's spaces. Lia Thomas, the first transgender athlete to win an NCAA division championship, is firing back at her critics, saying a lot of them are simply transphobes who are using the guise of feminism to hide their true hateful beliefs, because I guess Lia Thomas, not to bash Lia Thomas here, but I don't know if you are the epitome of feminism. I really don't. I don't think that. I don't know if anyone would argue that. But Thomas opened up about her detractors in a lengthy interview this week with Schuyler Baylor. I butchered that name. Keep butchering names. The NCAA's first trans swimmer, and she said it's just not possible to claim to be a feminist, but to also not support her when it comes to competing against biological females. I would say that's absolutely possible. I don't think you are really aware of what the definition of feminism is, and I don't think you're really in a position to lecture women on feminism. Like I said, I don't count myself, I never did count myself as a feminist. Now I'm starting to think I'm more of a feminist than than Lia Thomas, just because I'm trying to protect women's spaces. Quote, they're like, we respect Leia as a woman, as a trans woman, whatever we respect or identify, we just don't think it's fair. The former collegiate swimmer said on the Dear Schuyler podcast. You can't really have that sort of half support where you're like, oh, I respect her as a woman here, but not here. They're using the guise of feminism as support to sort of push transphobic beliefs. No, entirely not true. That's entirely a false equivalent. I don't, they're not doing that. They are simply wanting safe spaces for women. They want to feel comfortable in their own bathrooms, in their own locker rooms, in their own sports. If it's such an issue, make a separate bathroom. But they don't want that because they want to be fully integrated as women. But there will always be people who are uncomfortable and have a problem with this. And yet, in our society, what are we doing? We are catering to the extreme minority. I don't know the actual numbers, but I think the trans people are like 0.4%, possibly. It might even be lower than that. Women are 50%, as far as I know. But half the population has to feel uncomfortable for less than 1% of the population. It's really fascinating how they justify this stuff. Thomas, who competed against males but switched to female competitions after she started hormone therapy in 2019. Okay, so I was wrong. 2019. Even still, you still went through puberty as a biological man. So there's still that. You still have more bone density. You still have more testosterone. Won over biological women, her critics argued she had an unfair advantage and should be forced to compete in a separate category. Yes, that makes perfect sense to me. The issue became such a big deal, it sparked legislators to introduce bills in parts of the country to place restrictions on transgender athletes. Outspoken supporters of those rules, such as former swim star Riley Gaines and even some of Thomas's ex-teammates at UPenn, have called themselves feminists who are trying to fight to protect women's sports. Exactly, 100%. I don't even really understand this argument. I'm not trying to be bigoted. I'm not trying to, I'm not saying trans people shouldn't have their own spaces, but, you want to be integrated into a space where there's a vocal, it's getting bigger. There's more and more people speaking out. They don't want you there, not because they dislike you, but because they're not comfortable. Don't you think it's a little selfish to make everybody else around you uncomfortable to conform to what you believe? You want everybody to accept you for the person that you are now. But you couldn't, you couldn't accept yourself for the person that you were. But everyone else has to. It's baffling. But anyway, that's all I got. Leave a comment down in the comment section. Let me know about this. Like the video. It really helps out the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening this long. Later.